Hey VC, it's Danny. We got a bit of a haul here, so let me just get started. Um, these first couple I found last week. Just popped into my local and picked up Bob Dylan Hard Rain, um, a live album from '76, which I really enjoyed. Been meaning to pick this up for a while. It's funny. I actually saw the Live at Brandeis concert that Dean had highlighted a little while ago, but this beat it in terms of being a bargain. So I grabbed it, and Dean mentioned that concert had not quite thrilled him, and I was looking to be thrilled. So I took a chance on this. I was really happy that I did. Um, T-Bone Burnett is playing piano and guitar as part of the band here. Yeah, it's just some classic songs, and I'm sure a lot of you guys know this album, but Maggie's Farm, Stuck Inside the Mobile, uh, Shelter from the Storm, but it's really just getting to hear Dylan full tilt with the band in top form that has made this something I was really happy to pick up and something I'm sure I'll be returning to a lot. So. And then at the same time, apologies to Headley. Uh, I found the Smiths' Panic. I've been looking for this single for a while. Not too long, but a little while ago, my wife and I went to go see Demons, uh, the Bava um, Argento film, and this song is featured in there, and I immediately went home and realized I didn't have it in my record collection, and right around that time I had recently picked up some other Smith singles, so I was in the singles mood, and I've been wanting this Panic single. Glad I picked it up. 45 RPM single, so it sounds great. It's a great song. I mean, it's a for me, Panic really. I don't know. I mean, it's incredibly poppy for a Smiths song, but it still just delivers on everything I want from the Smiths. And the Dre's Train is an interesting instrumental track on the B side, as well as Vicar and a Tutu. Um, so yeah, I was thrilled to get this. I'm sure you guys find the same. These are not easy to come by. This stuff is as rare as red rocking horse shit. I once heard it, but uh, so happy to get it. Ooh. Sorry for shaking the camera there. All right. Now the rest of this is all. I went Christmas shopping at Amoeba, and of course I found a few things for myself. But John Prine, Diamonds in the Rough. Thrilled to pick this up pretty much on the cheap. It's in beautiful condition. Um, I don't know where this falls in his lineup. I want to say third album. Um, I haven't checked to confirm, but Souvenirs is on here, which is a fantastic song. Um, what else is on here? The Great Compromise. I want to say yes. The Great Compromise is on side B. Those are two of my favorite Prine songs, and this is 1972. It's just it's just a phenomenal album. I mean, Andrew, I think, has talked before about how John Prine just sits in the cheap bins and gets overlooked. Unfortunately, that's been changing the last few times I've seen his albums. They've been $20, and I know that they exist for five and under. So I've been holding out. I'm glad I did. Glad to grab this one. This will be get played over and over. John Prine is just a great musician and a fantastic songwriter. He, his him having a fantastic sense of humor is in no way mutually exclusive with him being an incredibly emotional and affecting songwriter, and that's maybe one of my favorite combinations. But anyway, happy to have that. Moving on. Urban Thermodynamics. I was looking in the Mos Def section. I love Mos Def. I watched a lot of skate videos in the late 90s, early 2000s, and that's where I got turned on to Mos Def, Talib Kweli. A lot of kind of underground hip hop from the late 90s, early 2000s is a good time for hip hop, in my humble opinion. So Mos Def is just an artist I collect. I was thrilled to pick this up. For a bootleg, it sounds pretty good. Yeah, it's great. This is right in between Mos Def and Talib Kweli are Black Star and Black on Both Sides. So it's basically prime Mos Def. Now Yasin Bey. He's since changed his name. But another one that I was very happy to pick up. I've had very good luck with original Mos Def recordings in the Amoeba Mos Def section, for what it's worth. And now, to preface the rest of this, Amoeba had I went on Saturday and they had just unveiled a new collection from an avant-garde, free jazz, prog, experimental noise electronica collection. I didn't get there till mid to late afternoon. I had to work in the morning, and so I wasn't expecting to find anything. And then I found too much. To start, I picked up the Art Ensemble of Chicago, Fanfare for the Warriors. This is on Atlantic, 1974. There were BYG Actuel art ensembles. I didn't know what to do. I have this weird rule, pseudo spiritual etiquette that I use when record collecting, that I don't like to look up records while I'm in a record store. My father owned a small business. I think it's just something that I would have found very rude if somebody did it in his store, so I can't bring myself to do it in the record store. Amoeba's big enough, I had to sneak a peek at my phone a little later into my dig and make sure that I was getting the good stuff. But that, looking at my phone confirmed that this is considered accessible for the art ensemble, so I figured, I know this is hard stuff, so that's where I'd want to start. I got to spin a bit of this yesterday, and if this is accessible, it's certainly a challenge. But it is. I had access to it. I enjoyed it. I really, really enjoyed it. There's something with this one in particular, the steadily building rhythm really reminded me of Art Blakey's Holiday for Skins, which was kind of beyond Miles Davis. Someday My Prince Will Come. That was the first jazz record that I really got into. Thrilled to have this one. Art Ensemble of Chicago, Fanfare for the Warriors. Another one, I picked up Baptism. It's a stock label promo, so just the regular Atlantic label in here. But it is a DJ promo copy. And this is a live album from 73. So right around the same time, both of these are on Atlantic. And this album was really... I only listened to the first half again, which I felt bad because the back of the record implores you to listen to the record front to back to fully get the experience. And I know that one day when I sit down front to back with this album, I will get the entire experience. But even just listening to the whole first side and how it builds, and even hearing them win over the audience. I mean, you can kind of hear there's so little audience reaction in the first couple tracks that you almost wonder how the audience is feeling, and then by the end of the third track, they're totally with it. But this is as Vinyl Richie would call it. This is the kind of music you put on when you want the company to go home. Uh, as some other members in the VC would call it, this is a total grail, and I'm super psyched to have found this stuff. Um, yeah, I mean, I've I have been finding in, I keep calling it difficult jazz, but free jazz or avant-garde jazz. I've been finding what I used to find in hardcore music or anything that has ever been outside of my realm of taste and influence. It becomes immediate somehow and extremely emotional because I think it's a very bipolar type of music. You're either really listening or you're totally shutting it out. It's either completely not for you or you've got to be in it. So I certainly had that experience with this next one. Another one I was really happy to find, Anthony Braxton, 3 compositions of new jazz. Now this one I know I've seen Derek Higgins show, and I believe this is either a first or a second, but a very early pressing on Delmark. I don't know Delmark as well as everybody else, but maybe you guys can tell from the label. I mean, this is out there. This is a 10 on Andrew's difficulty scale. If any of you have seen Where to Go After Coltrane and Davis that Andrew over Tales from the Crate has put together, I mean, this is a 10. Leroy Jenkins is on here, Richard Abrams, Leo Smith. I'm not familiar with Richard Abrams and Leo Smith, and I'm only honestly familiar with Leroy Jenkins from hearing Andrew talk about him. But this starts with some vocalizing, and it gets into some very sparse runs of notes, and something that sounds like a kazoo. It is a kazoo. Kazoo and slide whistles start coming in. I mean, there are moments on the first part of side A where you wonder, not wonder. I was almost laughing to myself because of how perfect this would be as a joke of the kinds of music that record collectors like. I mean, this is alienating. This is tough. But somewhere through, a little bit past the second half of the first side, I assume it's Anthony Braxton starts making these sounds with his saxophone, which sound like a growling animal or an animal in heat. I mean, it just immediately went to a place for me of, I've never heard this before. I have to be present. And it felt like the first time I'd heard some really intense guttural screaming in a hardcore band, or the first time you heard like sludge metal or something, and it was for me it was too heavy and too and with all that music I came around to it. It became easier to digest, and I think that will happen here. Well, there's more, so we'll keep going. So I also picked up this on Arista, and this is a promo. Anthony Braxton, Creative Orchestra Music, 1976. I don't even know how I chose the records I chose. These diagrams really spoke to me. I just like the way they look, and they reminded me of some of Eno's diagrams on the back of his ambient albums. And yeah, so I haven't listened to this one yet, but again, that quick Googling that I did allow myself to do confirmed that this would be near to the top of Anthony Braxton albums to get. And yeah, I think this is, it says here in the liner notes that it was kind of his his first opportunity to arrange for a large orchestra. So it'll be really interesting because the three compositions is if it one of its remarkable features was that it was so spare. I also picked up this Anthony Braxton, New York, fall 1974. And I know, and this is, I think, this is also a promo. I saw Andrew had highlighted this in his jazz video, his Where to Go After Coltrane and Davis. And the reason I picked this stuff up is not because I'm already, a big avant-garde free jazz head, but because I never see this stuff. I mean, I've been seeing it in the VC for so long, and I never see it ever. And I look out for it here and there. So I looked at grabbing these as an investment in my future as a record collector. I may not be totally ready for it now. If you told me 2 years ago that I would be buying this, I would have laughed at you. But I don't feel that way anymore, and I can only assume that will continue to evolve in the future. So I was just really happy to pick this stuff up. It was all very fair prices too. Nothing was more than 12 or 15, which I thought was solid prices for these records. And like I said, I never see them, so I didn't want to let them go. One more. Anthony Braxton Duets, 1976. Eric Dolphy is on side one. Honeyhole, Richard Abrams, Anthony Braxton. That's the third track. And I'm not sure if there's any. Well, regardless, I don't know anything about this record. I haven't listened to it. But the dogs heard something. Yeah, so I don't know. You got the dog's opinion on Anthony Braxton. I almost hesitate to say this, but I don't know. I have to be honest. I left so much Sun Ra there. I felt terrible. I knew Andrew. If I could hear Andrew's voice in my head, but there was so much Sun Ra that it had the dual effect of psyching me out and making me feel that it was freely available, if you know what I mean. Like sometimes when there's just too much of something sitting in front of you, it doesn't feel urgent to grab it. But really the issue was I couldn't tell the difference between a repress and an original. The prices were higher on the Sun Ra. I really didn't know what I was going after at all, and I just got scared off. And I'm kind of regretting it now, but I wasn't even there to spend money on myself in the first place. I mean, as I say this now, I realize it's going to be one of my ones that got away stories. Like the time I had a chance to pick up the replacements, Let It Be for $4 years ago, and I put it down to save money. And now I can't find a copy for less than $40. But anyway, one last grab. Another thing I was super excited to find here, Shirley Collins, Amaranth. So this is an interesting record. One thing, a minor aesthetic thing that I was excited about is it's on the Green Harvest label, which I don't have much of. Technically, it's Harvest Heritage, but still just thrilled to have something on the label. But so this is a reissue of one of Shirley Collins' very earliest albums, Anthems in Eden Suite, that her and Dolly Collins did together in '68, I want to say. And that is side 2 of this record. And it was, from the liner notes, I think it's saying it was an attempt to recreate what music would have sounded like in England before the fall, up to the Great War. Early. And the first side which is from 1975-76, is Shirley Collins recording new cuts to accompany it. And she intended this to be her last album. And it was until last year, I think. Excuse me. And I actually haven't heard her new album that she released last year. But this is basically, this is everything I want from Shirley Collins in one record. There's, I don't quite know how to describe it. There's almost like a swing, or in the way that she records the first side. The drums are just kind of slow and a little sticky, and it gives it just this slight, real slight, but it's almost like a funkiness, like just a little bit. If you've listened to any Alistair Roberts, if you've seen me recommend him, or if you know him and you've looked into his music, it's very connected. The first side of this record very much has a lot to do with what I really like about Alistair Roberts. And the second side is, it's like hearing music from a different time. Bass viol, rebec, cornet, decant, sackbut. Those are some of the instruments that are being used on the second side. I don't know what they are. But this, the anthem's an Eden Suite. 1969 in Abbey Road they recorded that. But it's really transportive. It's incredibly medieval. This is the kind of stuff I really get into with folk music and folk rock, which would maybe cover the first half a little bit better. But Shirley Collins is really tough to find. And if you do, even when I come across some of her stuff on Discogs, it's totally out of my price range. And this was a nice, affordable record. Which I'm really psyched to have, and I'm sure I will spin a lot. So, so that does it for me. I thought that would take a little longer, actually, but I guess not knowing what I'm talking about when it comes to Anthony Braxton is sped things up. But there's my haul, and I'll be back soon with some more. And if I don't see you before the holidays, happy holidays. But I'm sure that I will. All right, bye guys.